Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we're back with another video, and today what I want to talk about is kind of how I find my perfect A+ setups and how we can identify them for your own trading as well. Now, what this A+ setup really is basically the setup that I'm like super confident, right? If I see this setup, that's the one I'm sizing the heaviest on. It's the one that I'm most confident that it will play out. And honestly speaking, this is a setup that you can probably get like most of the week, maybe 4 days out of the week. So that shows up way more often than you guys will need. And without a doubt, in my opinion, out of all the strategies I've traded and all the setups I've traded, this is going to be the cleanest one. So with that being said, let's get directly into what the setup is and how you guys can use it. So as you guys may know, I trade the breakout structure for Rally Gap, and if you guys are not familiar with what that is, I have like at least 20 videos covering it on my YouTube channel, so watch any of them. It'll explain the entire thing for you. But with that being said, that perfect setup itself revolves around the breakout structure for Rally Gap. So this is the one, like I said, I've tested it multiple months, years, and nothing really comes close to this. So to start off, the first thing you need in order for that perfect setup is a very clear trend, right? So what we want to see is if the market is in a very clear uptrend, that's amazing. I would love to play a breakout structure for Rally Gap on that. What I don't want to see is the market kind of just moving sideways where it's like one massive candle up, one massive candle down. That is terrible. I mean, you really can't get a trade with any strategy in those market conditions, so that is something you want to avoid altogether. So I personally don't care if it's to the upside or downside. I just need to see that there's a very clear trend to either direction, and that's the most important thing. Now, the way you really identify these clear trends is you want to make sure that price is forming higher highs, higher lows. On the pullbacks, it's respecting, right? And on the breakouts, it's getting a very clean move. So in this situation, if you take a look, you have a low right here. The next one comes in higher than the previous low. Then the next low right after that comes in again higher. And we keep going this way until we get a very clear trend that we can tell is a very nice uptrend. So that's the first thing I look for. You need to make sure there's a clear trend of some sort. Otherwise, you can't find a direction. You don't have any clue where the market wants to go. So that's the first thing we look for. The second thing that I take a look at is a strong break of a high of day or low of day level. So in this situation, we have a high of day level, price gets a very clean break. And what do we classify as a clean break? I just want to see that price comes and takes out the level and it actually holds, and the candle that broke that high was a very clean one. So if we break that high, and let's imagine this is a candle right here, I don't want to see a breakout which has a candle along these lines. Like, this would be terrible. I don't want to see something along these lines where it's like a massive wick. Sure, we got the breakout itself, but this is a very weak candle. This indicates that sellers piled in. The candle is not really doing well over there, so that's not a strong break. What I'd like to see is maybe a full body candle, right, where price just blasts through the high, and that's amazing. So that's one thing right there, but another thing you really want to focus on is that it's a high of day and a low of day level only, right? A lot of you guys trade these levels that are not the high of day and low of day. Those don't have like a lot of follow through, okay? So if you have a level that's a high in between a high of day and a low of day, honestly, don't pay attention to it. It doesn't really matter, okay? So a strong break of the high of day and low of day, or either or, that's exactly what we look for. Now, moving on to the next step of the strategy that I need, all right? We need to see a fair rally gap, and size matters. So what that means is sometimes you'll have a breakout and the fair rally gap is like this small, like I can't even mark it out, right? I don't want to see that. I don't really care for that, okay? What I want to see is a fair rally gap that's like decent sized. All right, so that's like the middle between a too large fair rally gap and one that's too small. And you guys will see what I'm talking about when we go over the examples. Now, that fair rally gap also has to happen after the breakout happens. So in this situation, if you take a look, we got the breakout, then the fair rally gap forms. If the fair rally gap was like all the way down here, that's not going to work, right? It has to be after the breakout itself. Otherwise, we cannot play that trade. That's all for fair rally gap, right? You need a breakout, clear trend, fair rally gap. And now let's move into the time and time frames, all right? So we're going to be trading on the 1 through 5 minute time frame only. If you go down to a 30-second, garbage. Don't even want to see that setup, to be honest. If you go up to a 30 or 45 minute, absolutely garbage. I mean, we can't really trade there. There's so much room for failure. We don't really want to do anything with that. So 1 through 5 minute is kind of the sweet spot. You'll look around and see which one has the cleanest for rally gap setup. If all of the time frames from 1 through 5 minute have one, then in that case, you'll play the highest one, which would most likely be the 5 minute. Now, as far as time goes, right? In order to get the right time on the trade, this is also very important because different times in the market have different kind of reactions and everything like that. So the time that you really want to trade is going to be 9:30 a.m. Eastern time to 11 a.m. Eastern time. You can still take trades after that, but it's not going to be an A+ setup. All right, in order to get the most perfect concrete setup that you can find, it has to be within 9:30 to 11 a.m. Eastern time. If you are not sure what 9:30 to 11 a.m. Eastern time is, I mean, it's just the market open of New York session up until the first like hour and a half. And now lastly, let's move into our last part of the setup, which is confirmation. So what is confirmation? You might have all of these things aligning, but price comes into the fair value gap and it just does this. Like, well, obviously not that big, but it comes and breaks it right away, right? I don't want to see that. I need to make sure that there's actually something that price is showing me that, for example, it pulls back into it and it's actually holding that fair value gap. Otherwise, that trade means nothing. If it just taps into it, you're not going to enter right as it taps into it. That doesn't mean anything to you. In order for me to take that trade, it has to be when price taps into it. You wait a little bit, you see how the reaction comes in, wait for that candle to close, and that's where you take your entry. All right? So in this situation, would I enter right as it taps in? Absolutely not. I'm going to wait for price to come into it. It will respect, and that's when I'll take the entry on the close of that candle and open of the next one. So this is my short little criteria for what a A+ setup looks like. There isn't anything fancy. It's all just very basic stuff that you guys are used to regardless. And that's literally all you need. So with that being said, now I want to take a look at a few examples of trades that I've taken live in the Discord and really recap why I took that trade, why it was so perfect, and how we ended up banking on it pretty nicely. So let's go ahead and take a look at those trades and break down every single aspect of it so it's a lot more clear for you guys. So the first trade that we have is on Amazon, and this was a short setup, and we'll also take a look at a long one so you guys can see how both look. All right, so let's really go back to the chart right here. First thing you need is a clear trend. Does Amazon have a clear trend? Absolutely. You can see right off the market open, it's a very, very sincere, very clean downtrend. All right. There's no fake outs, there's nothing. Every single time we're pulling back, instantly back down. Massive rejection candles. It's constant green to red flips on the candles. The trend is very clear. Anybody can see this. All right. Next thing I take a look at is there a strong break of the high of day or low of day? And here we have absolutely one right here, one right here. It keeps constantly breaking the high of day and low of day with a lot of strength, which is amazing. All right. Next thing I take a look for, is there a fair value gap, and is it a normal one with a decent size? Okay, so let's take a look at that. Here we have a very decent fair value gap. It's not a large one like this one right here. Like, that's way too large. Okay, way too big. And it's not a small one like this one right here, where I can barely like draw it out. All right, so it's one that's decent sized. I can't even draw this one, that's how small it is, just to kind of put it into perspective. This is a normal size. This is one that's kind of just like an average trade, so that's perfect. This is what I want to aim for. And this is the part where I can't really explain it to you, because it's sort of like, you just kind of have to have like a little intuition and take a look at it. Is it insanely big or is it insanely small? Avoid them. But if it's like a decent normal size one, like for example, this one right here is also good, right? In terms of size, these are all pretty solid. That's fine. Okay. Now, time and time frames. This trade is taken between 9:30 to 11 a.m. Eastern time, so we're perfectly fine right there. Okay. And the last thing is, well, actually, second to last thing is the time frame. This trade is taken on the 1 minute time frame, so that falls between the 1 through 5 minute. All right. Now the last thing is confirmation. Where did I actually take the entry on this trade? Price pulls back into the fair value gap. I didn't take the entry until price actually closed, and the open of the next candle is where I took the entry. So it was right over here. All right. I took that entry. We ended up catching a really, really nice move right there. Personally, I take the entries with a little bit more confirmation because I leave room for an average down in case I need it. If you don't do that, maybe you can enter midway through the candle, but you're also taking a little bit of a bigger risk by doing that. So that is completely up to you. That one is like a little bit more difficult to say. But the safest option is going to be waiting for the candle to close. Open of the next candle is where you can take your entry. All right. So in this case, every single thing just aligned perfectly. You have a clear trend. The break is there. The fair value gap is there with a decent size. Time and time frames align, and confirmation all aligns. All right, so everything here is absolutely amazing. There's nothing here that we have missing, right? So this was a setup that I sized pretty decently on. It played out beautifully, and this was one trade that really made my entire month. Okay, and this was a perfect setup. So this is all of the elements of an amazing trade. This is what it will look like, and if you guys can sneak one of these trades, even like one a week, you are set. Like, it is absolutely amazing. Now let's go ahead and take a look at another one. This was a pretty big trade that I hit on Hood, and this time around we're on the 2 minute time frame. All right, once again, same idea. Do we have a clear trend? Absolutely. Very clearly, we have an uptrend right here where price is respecting higher low formations. Great, that's what we love to see. Second thing, do we have a strong break of the high of day or low of day? Absolutely. Every single time price is breaking the high of day, which in this case is where I took the entry right here. After this high of day breakout, we have that right there. Fair value gap. Once again, size matters. All right. In this situation, it's a pretty decent size fair value gap. So it's not anything like too big, it's not too small. We're all good to go. All right. Next one, time and time frame. Falls on the 2 minute time frame, which is between 1 through 5. So that's great. And the time as well. Is it before 11:30 and is it after 9:30? Absolutely it is. So that's exactly what I take a look at. All right. The last little missing piece of this trade. Where did I take the entry? All right. So I took my entry once we got a break of structure right here of the high of day. Price pulls back into the fair value gap right here. Shows me confirmation. It wicks right back up after respecting it. Took my entry on the open of this candle. Ended up catching about a nice little 40% push right here. And then I did also have 2 contracts that I left as a swing, which ended up running over 300% into the next day. All right. But the setup itself is very, very simple, right? There isn't anything crazy that I'm taking a look at. It's just like basic stuff. You have a very simple break of structure, very clear trend, confirmation, fair value gap, boom. You are good to go. All right. Now, the only thing you guys really want to be careful with is there will be some weeks maybe that the price action sucks so bad that you will not find the perfect setup. And that's totally normal, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But in most cases, in most weeks, you will find at least one of these setups a day. And it is absolutely going to be a clean setup for sure. So yeah, that is basically everything that goes into me finding my favorite setup. Practically every single morning, everything that we need that goes into it is listed out here. You guys can go ahead and copy this, test it out yourself. And once again, if you are confused on what the break of structure fair value gap model is, 20 different videos explaining it. Go back, watch them, it'll explain it all for you. So with that being said, I had a lot of comments also asking me, do you ever trade these setups live or anything like that? Yes, every single morning I do trade these setups live in the Discord, so you guys see me kind of walk through these trades one by one, start through finish, you know, where I take the entry, where I took the exit, why I'm taking that trade, every single little thing that goes into it, that is where I take the trade. And if you guys ever really need help in the free chats as well, feel free to join in, ask me any questions. I'm always hanging around there, so you guys can really get your questions answered by me directly, or anybody else in the chats. We have like 21,000 people there that will help you with it. So yeah, if you guys do want to join that, I have that link in the description below, and I also have it pinned to the comments. So make sure to join in and learn as much as you can. So with that being said, guys, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and it cleared things up for you guys. And if there's any specific video you guys want to see, make sure to let me know in the comments below, and I'll try to get it out to you guys as soon as possible. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys back in next week's video.